Welcome back, everyone. You're watching We Heart Therapy. This is the special series EFT Talk, and I'm your host, Anabelle Bugatti, licensed marriage and family therapist and certified EFT therapist right here in fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada. We have a very exciting guest today. We have Michael Moran. He is an LCSW located in the awesome city of New York, and he is a certified EFT supervisor. He's also a certified AASECT sex therapist, and he and one of our wonderful EFT trainers, Zoya, run workshops about sex as a safe adventure. And he's agreed to join us today to talk about sexuality and discrepancies in desire and sexual scripts. And so we're going to get right on into talking about sexuality. Thank you, Michael, so much for being with us today.
Thanks, Anabelle. Happy to be here.
So tell us a little bit more. So, when couples come in for, romantic issues or relationship issues, and we bring up sex, one of the most common things that we run across as therapists is the discrepancies in desire. And this seems to be a place that gets a lot of therapists stuck. So can you shed some more light on what's going on here and where do we go from there?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a tricky thing. And we hear about it often, I think, as couples therapists, even as a couple who comes to us for, conflict in the relationship will often hear about, that the sex is in the toilet, that it's not really happening. And then as we start to, unpack that, often what we're getting is there's this, this differential in the desire to be sexual, where one partner is, reporting that they really want this, that they feel close with their partner when they're being more sexual, and the other partner is just like, I'm just not into it, it's just not happening, and what have you. So, one of the first things I do when I hear that is, I put my EFT hat on and I slow things down and we unpack it, really mindfully, right? Thoughtfully. I take a thorough sexual history, when we look at desire, but I do that, I take that history through the EFT lens, right? So when I start to unpack, right, have you ever felt desire? What was that like? Did you have desire in the beginning of the relationship and then it dwindled, or was it never really present, right? Do you have desire currently, but not for your current partner, right? I do individual sessions with all of this at first, right? So I can really start to understand what's going on with each partner. And so then as we begin to really unpack what's happening there, we start to, learn about, what's occurring. I will say though, especially with sex, I really like to emphasize this. Don't take anything at face value, right? Get into your EFT, your EFT space and get curious. Get curious about what's occurring, because the myths that we live under in our culture and other cultures, what have you, the beliefs about sex, there's so much, there's sexual trauma, right? There's a lot going on that can impact a person's capacity, right, to relax into their body and become sexual, right, to turn that erotic engine on. There's a lot that has to occur there. So get curious and learn about what's going on for each person.
So what I hear you saying, and this is so fabulous, thank you so much. I feel like I want to take notes, it's so good. So when, clients, when we get to the part about sexuality, what you're saying is a good thing to do for therapists would be to do an individual session with each of them and do a sexual history with them, which I think is a fabulous idea. I don't think many of us have considered that before. And I really love that these questions, that you're suggesting, talking to them about desire. Did you ever have desire? Did it start to dwindle? What if they say that they never had desire?
Yeah, and you'll hear that. Get curious, right? Unpack that, right? What does it mean to them to have desire, right? Have they ever had moments of pleasure, right? Then we slice it thinner, slice desire thinner, and learn about that. If they say they've never had desire, they just don't even really get it, right? I mean, I err on the side of, with this kind of thing, I err on the side of caution anyway. But if I'm hearing that this is lifelong, right? It's not acquired. It's not a dynamic that is present in this relationship, that this person is reporting to me that they've never had it. They don't know what it is. It's like, what are people talking about? What's the big deal, right? One of the things I'll definitely do is refer them to a physician, usually a urologist who specializes in sexual health, to make sure there isn't any, physiology that's impacting it. Remember, with sex, which is not the case with our relational work that we do with folks, right? With sex requires, is dependent on the physiology. So you want to, be mindful about that. And I tend to err on the side of caution. The way I present it to folks is, look, let's just do this as a rule out. Let's just ensure that the physiology is in place, right? That everything's fine. And most of the time, I'll be honest with you, the physiology is fine. But that hasn't always been the case. And you want to rule that out from the outset, because you can appreciate if there's something, biochemical, the vascular, neurological, right? If there's issues that are going on physically, right, with the physiology, and that's not being addressed, you can do the most amazing EFT sex therapy in the world, right? And there's still going to be problems. So, and then people are even in more despair, right? So you want to rule that out, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I have had clients where they knew there was something physiologically wrong, and that created a lot of shame, and that actually stopped going to the doctor to get the full treatment that they needed. Because I'm the problem, I'm broken. So
right in that narrative, right? You hear the shame, you hear the fear, right? So often when we slow things down around sex, that's what you're going to start unpacking. And I always feel, what better model than EFT to really thoughtfully, mindfully, unpack all of that with folks, to really help them understand how that's impacting their capacity to be sexual.
So it sounds like, when we're doing the assessment, we're really trying to expand on any moments where they might have been tuned into their sexuality, to their, their bodily cues that say, I'm aroused, I'm interested. We really expand and heighten those and get to know what those are, so we can bring relationship work.
That's right.
I'm thinking also, this is a key place where sexual scripts may come into play as well, because if you're somebody who maybe said you've never felt desire, but then you kind of go into their history about maybe the messages they learned about sex growing up. Maybe they learned that, it's dirty or evil or, whatever, something that's not good to want sex, to desire sex. It's only for procreating. So then if they're not having sex for that, they suppress any desire. So it's not even that they don't have the capacity. They've just been suppressing it for years because they've been told it's shameful, it's wrong.
Right. That's a key point, right? That's what I'm talking about, these myths and just beliefs, the beliefs that we live under, and how that can impact, our ability to be sexual. That's exactly right,
So what are some of the most common myths that you find come across your office, and how do you kind of get under those?
One of the big one, right, that I'll often hear is, sex is just bad. It's dirty. It's messy. It's, I've never been good at it. I've never felt good about my body. I've never felt, I'm not this sex machine. You can appreciate, in our culture, what we hold up, as the ideal body. It doesn't even exist. Half of these images now that they've all been like retouched, and these folks don't exist, but we think, and I live in New York City, which is, there's a lot of very, very beautiful people in New York City, but the way that we, you know, we put so much pressure on ourselves, and then we start telling ourselves, if I don't look like that, right, then how is somebody going to really desire me? And one of the biggest aphrodisiacs we can have, right, is to feel desired, right, is to feel that energy of someone wanting us, right, somebody desiring us. That can often fire up the engine, right? But if we're cut off from that, if our feelings are, you know, if we have a belief that that's, you know, that's not going to happen, that's just not who I am, right? Hard to get our erotic engine humming, right?
And something you said triggered something that I remember I had a few clients mention too around feeling desired, is that they feel like their spouses just want it, not.
It's a big one. Yeah,
And
I've worked that a lot.
Of course I want you. You know, they don't understand how the dots aren't connecting. So can you talk to us a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. I work with that a lot too. I know I've worked with that a lot. And, you know, look, and this is what I love about EFT. We unpack it, we validate it, you know, we validate each position, we get underneath there, right? Often, you know, one of the fundamental underpinnings with this whole differential and sexual script thing, you know, that we're all having to navigate with our couples, right, is what we've learned, right? For some people are wired, the way that sex works for them is they want to have sex to feel connected, right? They want to have sex to feel connected. I don't feel connected from you. I feel disconnected from you. I feel like you're far away from me. Let's have sex and we'll feel connected again. It'll be great, right? Where other folks are more organized around, I want to feel connected. I need to feel connected to you, right? I need to feel connected to you in order to be sexual. If I don't feel connected to you, why on earth would I want to have sex with you? No, not happening, right? I need to feel you with me. I need to feel emotionally connected, right? I need to feel safe. I need to feel like you're really with me, you're really present for me, right? Then that's kind of like, then my erotic window, right? That window we talk about, you know, our willingness window, right? Then our window opens up. But until that's happening, you know, please get away from me. And so then what often happens, right, is they never work through that. They never work through that until they get into your office, right? Until they land into your office. And then you start to unpack that and you start to help each person, because you can appreciate, right? Unless they've been able to have emotionally present conversations around that, where they weren't defensive, where they weren't stuck in fear, that when they weren't stuck, you know, in the negative cycle, when they weren't above the waterline, right, in the negative cycle, you can appreciate all they're going to, you know, they're just vilifying each other, right? They're not capable of really opening to what's happening for each person. And so then what often happens is you get into this, you know, one of the most common ones that we deal with, right? We hear about, you know, in a straight couple, we'll hear about the wife doing her wifely duty, right? That whole thing, like, you know, it's like she just like rolls over. Okay, let's, you know, I'll just do this and get this done already. You know, not gratifying. And when you unpack it, often with the husband, while any kind of sex is better than no sex for some people, it's not what they really want, right? They're not really, they know, you know, people get a sense, you know, we get a sense with our partner, right? And so we have to slow all that down, really, and help them understand that. And then once the person who's more wired around needing to feel emotionally connected, right? You know, in order for that willingness window to open, they have to feel emotionally connected. Once we learn about how we create that, right? Then of course, the person who is more wired around, you know, let's have sex to feel connected, we're going to be able to sort of massage that gridlock.
Right. And the two really move in concert together, because
they do. Yeah.
One needs to feel connected. And often I find, you know, with one of the partners, the one who needs to have sex to feel connected, you know, when I dig a little bit deeper, I find that they don't know how to get emotionally close to their partner.
That's
And
right.
so it puts all this stress on sex. It's like all the eggs go into that basket and their partner feels it because they're like, they just want sex all the time. It's like this unquenchable
Mm-hmm.
thirst will never be enough. And it's really draining for that partner because the other partner really just wants to get close. And the only way they know how is through sex. And
Yeah.
so unpacking that really and helping them to find other ways to pull their partner close then helps their partner feel connected and more willing to have sex. And then they're both actually getting ready.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's exactly right. Yeah. So that's how we start to get into the underbelly with that.
Now, what about one of the other myths that's pretty popular out there is that sex needs to be novel and, with new things all the time or new partners. Like, you can't have sex with your best friend because that's just weird. It's too comfortable.
Right. This is one of the things we address in our workshop, Sex is a Safe Adventure, because we're coming from the premise, from the idea that as we create security, right, we create the secure bond, we create that safe haven with a couple, right, that from that platform, they're in their best position to then launch off and have an adventure, right? And, I love, all the metaphors around sex is they're so often around food, sexual menus, all of this. Suzanne Iazenza talks a lot about this. She's a sex therapist in New York. I do a lot of consultations with her, and, we talk about, with sex, if, you may love pizza. Pizza's your favorite food, right? But if all you have for dinner is pizza, day after day after day after day, at some point, you're not going to want to have that pizza anymore, right? It's not going to be happening, right? So we want to expand the menus. And so then, right, why isn't the menu expanding? What's going on there? Is there fear stopping folks, right, from having that adventure, right? From creating an eroticism, right? Eroticism requires us, to take emotional risks, and be creative. Think outside the box. There's nothing wrong with that, It's a beautiful, it can be a beautiful aspect of our sexuality, but we have to be willing and able to do that. Can we can we become present for ourselves, become vulnerable, and turn to our partner and share about what's really going on there? And for many folks, they don't even know. And that's what they're going to do in your office. You're going to help create a space, a very safe space for them to tune into these places in themselves and help them share, and turn to their partner and share, which is very gratifying work.
So are we going to put this back into the cycle and almost kind of do a little bit of stage 1 work at the beginning of our work around sex and kind of trace how maybe one person pursues for sex or how one person avoids sex, what the blocks are, just as you the regular cycle.
That's right. Yeah. We talk about how, there's the relational cycle and then there's the sexual cycle. And, they're different systems, they're different cycles, but they impact each other. And sometimes just, for the EFT therapists out there, sometimes, not always, but sometimes the positions are reversed. It usually has to do with sexual trauma, sexual shame, major, things where, where a person who's normally the pursuer in the relationship, because of, whatever reasons are going on there, when it comes to sex, they just completely shut down and they become the withdrawer. And so, you just want to be patient with them and yourself as you start to map this out and really start to understand what's going on. Because in the beginning, you'll think, wait, you're the pursuer in the relationship. You must be the pursuer sexually, but that's not always the case.
Right. So what it kind of sounds like too is, as usually we're probably going to do this work around stage 2, even though, so we're stage 2 in the regular relationship cycle. So things are more stable. It's more safe. So then when we go into the sexuality, it's going to be a lot safer to open this up, even if we are kind of doing stage 1 work with the sexual cycle. But I like, say, when they switch positions, now the pursuer is withdrawer, and you are tracking their negative sexual cycle and really bringing out, all of the perceptions, the beliefs, the emotions, everything that goes into the cycle, then I think, what sounds kind of cool is that you would get to another form of stage 2 with them where you're going to help re-engage the withdrawer sexually.
That's right.
I never even really thought of it that way. So it's like
Uh-huh.
a whole separate other withdrawal re-engagement. Now that would be a great series to do, withdrawal re-engagement sexually.
Uh-huh. No, working with sex, look, there's a lot of vulnerability that is going on, you know, even with our folks that are just saying, I just want to have sex to feel, I just need to have sex to feel connected. I just need to have sex to feel connected, right? Well, you know what? They're connected to somebody, right? They love somebody who isn't wired the same way as them. So they're going to have to learn about their partner, right? And we're going to have to learn about what's going on for them. And oftentimes you'll hear these, you'll hear about like, where their self-esteem is so predicated around, being sexual and feeling desired and being able to turn people on, right? Being the sexual vixen and all of that. And underneath that, right? Why is there rigidity there? Why is there rigidity there? Underneath that is often, fear. It's around, that's all I am. That's all, it's my identity. If I don't have that, who am I, right? So, we get to, slow things down and unpack all of that.
I'm really like putting some pieces together as you're talking about this. And I'm thinking in terms of, putting sex into the attachment frame, is that somebody who needs to be the vixen all the time, to me, says anxious pursuer. So, go into that frame of, what's underneath that anxious pursuit in this way that they need to go to these methods. It's another way of them, reactively trying to pull their partner close and a sexual.
That's right. And soothing the anxiety, right? Soothing their anxiety. Right.
Yeah. And the same thing with the withdrawer. It's like, don't be fooled when they say, I don't need sex. It's not that big of a deal. It's kind of the same thing as a withdrawer who says, I don't see why I need to share my emotions. It's not a big deal. We know in a love relationship, it is a big deal.
That's right. Your partner that's not true for your partner. And oftentimes, once you build the alliance and you're really in the underbelly, right? You'll find that it's not true for them either. They just were kind of cut off. I'm not saying that's always the case. I don't get into this, this one thing, for anybody, but often when you slow things down, you learn about there's a lot going on there. Just like when we do that awesome work of withdrawing of re-engaging the withdrawer, and really, bringing their world to light. Often for the first time, you'll find that there's often a lot going on there. They're just kind of hidden behind this mask.
So let me see if we can, lastly, kind of talk about this really important thing that I've had come up a lot, and in speaking with other therapists, they've had it come up a lot, is female partners who have used sex as a tool to secure the relationship, and then once the relationship is secure, they don't.
There goes the sex.
Yeah, they're like, I don't really like sex is okay, but sex has never really been that form of bonding. It's like it was just a method to secure the relationship, and once the relationship was secure, they're happy and they're fine.
I've seen that. Yeah, I've heard. Yeah, I've dealt with that. Yeah. Well, if they were with a partner who was just like them, they probably wouldn't be in our office, right? They'd probably they'd be a no sex marriage, and it would be okay, And the research shows there are couples that are not very sexual, that are, very happy in basically no sex marriages, but both partners has to be their truth, right? That has to be their truth. And there are folks that are like that, but those don't usually land in our office. What we get is, one partner is dragging the other into therapy. So, we're going to want to slow things down and get curious. And this is where we have to be really mindful about, becoming judgmental, or where our own sort of ideas, myths, beliefs about sex can impact our capacity to really lean into another's world. We have to be, and I really should emphasize that, we have to do, when you're working with sexuality, you really have to do your own work. You really have to be present for how the culture, how your upbringing, right, has influenced, your values around it. But, you know, with that couple, right, you're going to slow things down and learn about, so, okay, so you're saying you did it. It was kind of, you know, this was, you knew it was important in the beginning. You knew it was important to your partner to be sexual. So you certainly went along for that ride. And now you have a couple kids, and that part of you is saying, I'm done. I did what I needed to do. You know, you're with each person, right? You're going to have to thoughtfully, mindfully, you know, kindly, patiently unpack it all, right? And validate, then cross over to the other partner, really learn about how this has impacted them, you know, and you want to do that work in front of the partner, right? To really slow things down and learn about what it has been like for them, right? And to try to start to, you know, do your step 3, you know, of really identifying what, you know, the emotions that have been masked in all of this. Then once we've de-escalated and they start to have a felt sense, right? A felt sense of how this has been playing out, especially with the one who's saying, look, the door's closed. It's not happening. Let it go, you know, because there's a rigidity there, right? There's a rigidity. So hopefully once we've done, you know, a really good stage 1 work where they each have a felt sense of how this has impacted the other and what's going on, right? And the person who wants more sex is starting to get a felt sense of how that, you know, that script has served that person, you know, why it has been important for them to sort of see it as that way, right? Then we can start to do our work. I prefer to do this kind of work in stage 2. I will say though that, and Zoe and I talk about this all the time, and she has an awesome tape on working with a couple who really are in stage 1, but they're in such pain about it that she had to go in on the sex, right? And so we often have this assumption that you do the sexual work in stage 2. Yeah, sometimes yes, but sometimes no. If folks are in pain and they really need, this is what's going on, you have no choice. You have to deal with the sex in stage 1. But what I like to say there is, if you do effective work there, right? The stage 1 sexual cycle work that you're doing will generalize to the relational cycle, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So this is really helpful. And I'm, you know, while you're talking, so guys, if you see me squinching my eyebrows, I'm concentrating, I'm connecting, I'm organizing everything. This is so good and so helpful, and it's great to hear. And, you know, I'm just thinking about, you know, when you do get into stage 2, you know, because it seems, you know, you have things like sensate focus and all these things, and it seems like it's almost easier. Again, it's easier to work with a sexual pursuer, just like it is in the regular cycle, because they're giving you more material to work with.
Right. And they're so motivated, right? Right. They're like showing up at your office. They've done all the, you know, they're like, they've been thinking about this forever. Right.
Yeah. So I think, you know, really kind of conceptualizing the sexual withdrawer as, you know, really seeing them as the withdrawer, like the attachment withdrawer, and using the same set of tools, you know, helping them tune into those moments, you know, just as when they might have a little faint piece of emotion in their relational cycle, you know, they may have a glint of a moment of desire with their partner, and really trying to get in and heighten that and bring it out and help them to tune in to their own desire, which part of the engagement, you know, you look at the blocks, what blocks. So the rigidity comes from this block to closeness in this way, and you're really going to dig under that block and then help them start to tune into their own body, their own desire for connection, give them almost permission to desire their partner again.
That's lovely. Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, I think that's exactly right. You know, that's what we're after. That's what we're after, you know, to really give people permission. Oftentimes, you know, they haven't given themselves permission, you know, for themselves to be sexual, you know, for their sexuality to be important to them. And then of course, if they haven't given themselves permission to allow, you know, to allow them to be sexual themselves, how are they going to, how are they going to start to see their, this is how I like to frame this. It's like, your domestic partner, the partner, the person that you parent your kids with, the person who, you guys make dinner to, all of the activities of our lives, right? And our domestic partner, how do we begin to see our domestic partner through the erotic lens? How does that come online? And there's, if we haven't really given ourselves permission to do that, how is that not going to impact who we are and what plays out in our relationship? Yeah.
Yeah, that is so important. And, oh man, this is so helpful. Thank you so much, Michael. Now, you and Zoya have workshops on this called Sex is a Safe Adventure, right?
Yep.
People attend. How can they find one? How can they schedule one in their area?
We have one coming up in 2 weeks in Philadelphia, the Philadelphia Center for EFT. Just, certainly, Google Philadelphia Center for EFT. You can sign up through their website. That is, when is it? It's March 2nd and 3rd. So it's coming up in a couple weeks. We have another one. We have another 2-day workshop, Zoya and I, in Boston. We're in Boston, March 16th and 17th. That's with the New England Center for EFT. So just go to their website and you can sign up through them. We're also going to be in Irvine, California for a 1-day workshop, I believe October 6th. And then we also booked Arizona. I believe we're going to be in Arizona in March of 2018. So those are the ones that are on the books, but I believe some others are in the works, right? So we have that. And then if you have any questions or want to talk to me about any of this, my email is fulfilled. It's really easy to remember. It's fulfilledcouples@gmail.com.
You have a website.
And I have a website, fulfilledcouples.com. So that's easy.
And so folks can contact you and try to maybe get one of these workshops scheduled in their area?
Sure, of course. And you can always contact Zoya as well.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Michael, for being on our series today. You've been so much of a
Oh, you're very welcome. This was fun. I'm glad we did this.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Make sure that you subscribe and stay tuned because more videos are on the way.